Zen Buddhism by the numbers, number 6, the Paramitas. Kshanti, patience, perseverance. Tao Te Ching, chapter 78. Nothing in the world is so soft and weak as water. Nothing else can wear away the hard, the strong, and remain unaltered. Weak overcomes strong. Soft overcomes hard. Everyone knows this. No one uses the knowledge. Therefore, the sage says, accept a country's filth and become master of its sacred soil. Accept a country's ill fortune and become sovereign under heaven. Upright words sound upside down. Hekigan Roku, case 17. Kyorin's sitting long and getting tired. Main subject. A monk asked Kyorin, what is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West? Kyorin said, sitting long and getting tired. Secho's verse. 1, 2, and tens of hundreds of thousands take off the muzzle and set down the load. If you turn left or right, following another's lead, I would strike you as Shiko struck Ryutetsuma. It's wonderful to be back here with you all. So, such a wonderful thing that we can get together in this way and practice and dedicate ourselves in this way. And it's fitting weather for the talk that we're having today. Cold and windy, a little snowy. A really good time to talk about patience. So this is part of the series that I've been doing of Zen Buddhism by the numbers, and we're up to the number 6. And we know, of course, that there are 6 paramitas. I've already spoken about dana and shila, generosity and ethical discipline. And the third of the paramitas is patience, which is sometimes translated as tolerance, sometimes forbearance, sometimes perseverance. It's a wonderful quality and considered not only in this tradition, but in most spiritual traditions, and certainly in the Christian tradition, as perhaps the most fundamental virtue that a person can have. It's hard to tease out all of the different virtues. They overlap in a lot of ways, and they overlap with the Eightfold Noble Path, But patience is fundamental. Patience is the opposite of the poison of aversion. Aversion being anger, hatred, ill will, fear. Think of the biological reaction of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight reaction. That's essentially aversion. And that reaction is triggered by all kinds of things, not just big, scary things that really trigger a fight and flight. It's not just the tiger that you see or a mugger or somebody kind of scary. All of the little things in your life that are annoyances also trigger that feeling, and you can feel it inside you. It's just a little roiling tension of "Ah!" And you feel it sometimes when you're doing zazen. And then the trigger usually is something either psychological or physical. And sometimes it's really hard to tease out the two. You think that you've got a lot of pain in your legs or in your back, or your hip, or your knee, your ankle, your big toe. And what the pain really is, it's just you're bored out of your mind. And so you're creating some kind of a tension, some kind of tension that gives you something to focus on, because there's nothing there, right? It's just nothing. So we're not used to nothing. We want something, even if something is nasty, like a pain in your knee. And if you doubt this, think of, and I don't know if some people may have never had this experience, but I'm sure most people probably have. Think of when you are having zazen where you're feeling really concentrated and really in touch, and nothing hurts. It's just, you're there, and it's like, it's right there, and there's no pain. So a lot of times this thing that you're dealing with, this pain that you're dealing with, is really coming from just your own psyche wanting to make up something that you can focus on, and something you can react against or with. And there are all kinds of ways of dealing with that kind of pain. But the most important way of dealing with that kind of pain, and with any other kind of pain for that matter, is just not running away. Just not turning away from it. Not trying to push it down. Patience is not about indifference or suppression. Patience is about being with something with kind concern, with curiosity, noticing what's there and doing what you can to make it better, but without making a huge deal out of it. So if you're having pain, you breathe into the pain, you soften the area. You may send some loving kindness to that aching knee of yours. Or you're dealing with the pain of an uncertain situation in your life and the emotions that are aroused by that situation. And so you send yourself or the people that you're involved with some loving kindness, some good, positive men energy, sending them some love. Because the one way that you can't overcome that kind of pain is by lashing out. Getting angry at it doesn't help at all. Stewing about it doesn't help. Getting frustrated doesn't help. Running away might help in the short run, but not in the long run. You soften yourself. You soften your muscles, you soften your heart. This is what patience is about. Patience with yourself, with your own drama, your own hardships, whether those are physical hardships, illness, pain, old age, arthritis, whatever physical hardship you may have, or psychological hardship. You choose not to beat yourself up about it. You choose to treat yourself with kindness. Yesterday I quoted Buddha's advice to Ananda when Buddha was dying, and Ananda was so distraught and worried about how he would continue his practice without the Buddha, how the Sangha would manage to continue without the Buddha. And the Buddha said, "You are the light. You are the Dharma. You are your own refuge. You are the refuge of the Dharma." But we don't always feel that way. If we always felt that way, we wouldn't be here right now doing this on a Saturday afternoon. Right? We have to trust that the Buddha knew what he was talking about. And he just wasn't just blowing wind. You are the light. But that light doesn't shine without patience, without sitting through whatever it is that is clouding over that light. Looking at it not with a sense of scorn, this again, always the same crap coming up. But looking at it with tenderness, treating yourself as you would treat a loved one. Patience also, of course, is about the suffering that we all experience in dealing with others. The French writer and philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre famously said, "Hell is other people." And of course he had a point. But also, other people are your teachers. And especially when they're pushing your buttons. Especially when they're trying your patience. Especially when you're seething inside. And what is that all about? Patience with others, with the ways in which you react to other people. And the problem, generally speaking, is not other people. The problem is how we deal with other people. And how we deal with ourselves dealing with other people. All of the turmoil that we create, the drama we create about a phone call or a visit from somebody. If we look at these other people and the struggles that we have with them and consider them a way of instruction, it changes the complexion of the relationship. And then the final part of patience is just patience with the basic fact of human existence, which is dukkha, which is the unsatisfactoriness, the emotional component, psychological component of existence, of wanting what we don't have, not wanting what we do have, wanting things to be other than they are. And looking at that kind of turmoil also as our teacher. Not something to run away from, not something to lash out at, but something to learn from. Pain is a great teacher. Whatever kind of pain you're talking about, whether it's physical pain or psychological pain, the struggles that we have. There's so much that we can learn from it, but it requires patience. So you're doubly lucky today, not just one text, but two texts. And I did that because there are two sides of patience, and I wanted to touch on both of them. The Tao Te Ching, chapter 78, nothing in the world is so soft and weak as water. Nothing else can wear away the hard, the strong, and remain unaltered. Water is an amazing substance, an amazing being. Life cannot exist without water, at least not on our planet. Water always seeks the lowest position. Water conforms to whatever container you put it in. Water willingly sacrifices itself. Water comes down from the sky and is absorbed by the earth. Water is drunk by us, by animals, by plants, by microbes. And because water has no self and no agenda to protect, it's always true to its nature. Nothing in the world is so soft and weak. And this is the mind that we're cultivating when we do Zazen. This softness, this adaptability. Bodhidharma, in his outline of practice, said there are 4 all-encompassing practices. The first is suffering injustice. Injustice is perhaps not exactly the word that he was going for. I'm not sure, but that's the only translation I've seen. I think of it the way Shakespeare had Hamlet in his to be or not to be soliloquy, talking about the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. The slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Injustice. Whatever drama you're suffering from, that's the injustice he's talking about. Whether it's being treated unfairly, being yelled at, hurting inside, the death of a loved one, a diagnosis that came out of the blue and rocked your world. How do you respond to that with the same selflessness that water has? The same fluidity? The second practice that Bodhidharma talked about was adapting to conditions. When I was thinking about what text to use, one of the texts that I thought about was a koan. I forget whether it comes from the Mumonkan or the Hekigan Roku, but a monk asked the master, how can I go to the place where there is no heat or cold? Maybe it was a very cold day at the monastery. Or maybe it was a very hot day at the monastery. The guy was just dissolving into a puddle of sweat. How can I go to where there's no hot or cold? And the master said, when it's cold, let it be so cold that it kills you. When it's hot, let it be so hot that it kills you. This is adapting to conditions. It's hot. You can do two things when it's hot. You can fight against it, which is perhaps a reasonable thing to do. You can seek out air conditioning, you can put a fan on, or you can simply be like water that adapts to whatever container it's put in. Say, I'm hot. Hot, 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 hot. Bodhidharma's third all-encompassing practice is wanting nothing. How can you go to the place where there is no hot or cold? When you no longer want hot or cold, when you no longer are separate from hot or cold. Just this, like the water, seeking out the lowest position. Just whatever conditions cause it to do. Weak overcomes strong, hot, soft overcomes hard. Everyone knows this, no one uses the knowledge. There's a poem by Wallace Stevens, one of my very favorite poems, called The Snowman. And you could think of this as a poem about patience. You can think of it as a poem about zazen, about wanting nothing. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost in the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold a long time, to behold the junipers shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter of the January sun, and not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind, and the sound of a few leaves, which is the sound of the land full of the same wind that is blowing in the same bare place for the listener who listens in the snow, and nothing himself beholds, nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is. How can I go to the place where there is no hot or cold? One must have a mind of winter. and have been cold a long time, to behold the junipers shagged with ice. It's just a wonderful poem. And this is the kind of knowledge, the kind of understanding that we can only get by being present. By being patient with whatever is arising. Cold, cold. The listener who listens in the snow and nothing himself beholds nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is. Great description of clear seeing. When the clouds have dispelled, gone away, blown away, and you see nothing that's not there. No illusions, no delusions, nothing that's not there, and the emptiness that is. The stanza of, therefore the sage says, accept a country's filth and become master of its sacred soil. Accept a country's ill fortune and become sovereign under heaven. Lao Tzu, who wrote the Tao Te Ching, was a government official, an ex-government official, and a lot of the poems in the Tao Te Ching deal with power and the exercise of power, how one should govern. And here basically he's saying, become like water. Accept whatever is there. Don't make yourself important like a mountain. Mountains get worn away. Make yourself the recipient. Accept both the good and the bad. No propaganda. No sugarcoating. And he's saying this about a country and about the people who should govern a country, but he's really also saying it about each one of us and how we govern ourselves. Accept what's there. Accept the filth in your own heart. Don't run away from it. Don't hold on to it. But clearly acknowledge and become master of the sacred soil. Become master of yourself. Accept a country's ill fortune, suffering injustice. and become sovereign under heaven. And then he ends his poem with telling you, yeah, I know this sounds crazy, but it's true. Upside words sound upside down. Upright words sound upside down. Another translation for that is true words sound false. Now getting on to Kyorin and sitting long and getting tired. So one side of Kshanti is patience and forbearance. The other side of Kshanti, and you can think of this as the yin and yang aspects of it, the other side is perseverance. Doing what you do regardless of how you feel about doing it. Doing what you do regardless of the negative implications. A monk asked Kyorin, what is the meaning of Bodhidharmas coming from the West? It's kind of a stereotypical question. It was very popular, and you see it in a lot of koans. And basically, it's a way of saying, what's the point of all of this? What are we doing? Why did Bodhidharma come from India? Why do we go to the Zendo? What's the essential point of all of this? What's the essential point of Buddhism? What's it all about? Kyorin said, sitting long and growing tired. No big goal. He could have said, cutting vegetables in the Tenzo. He could have said, cleaning the toilet. He could have said, becoming like water. But monks do a lot of zazen. They sit for long periods. I mean, this weekend session is a challenge in its own way, but in Rahatsu, you sit twice as much. And in some monasteries, the monks, when they're in session, sit up all night long. Sitting long and growing tired. And you don't look for a reason. You express your nature perfectly, without words, without making a big deal of it. So, Kyorin Choan, he lived from 908 to 987, and he was a successor of Uman Buyen Zenji, who most of you probably know from other koans. He's featured in a lot of koans in both the Womonkan and the Hekikan Roku. And Kyorin was Uman's attendant for 18 years. And for 18 years, every day, Uman would call Kyorin. Kyorin, come here. And Kyorin would come, And Uman would ask the same question every day. What is this? What is this? What is this? And I don't know what went through Kieran's mind every day for 18 years. The old guy must be off his rocker. Doesn't he have anything better to ask me? What is this? Talk about patience. Imagine you get called every day, and every day it's the same question. 18 years in a row. Every day. What is this? And then one day, Uman asked the question, and Kieran said, "Oh, I understand. I get it." And Uman said, "Good. Now try saying it in a transcendent way." And they went through another 3 years until Kieran could say something better than, "Oh, I understand." That's patience. He didn't get angry, or maybe he did in the beginning. But eventually he came to understand. I'm going to read you one more poem. This one's by Jane Hirschfield, who's one of the finest American poets around these days. She's a longtime Zen student. She had lay ordination at the San Francisco Zen Center. She lived there for a few years and has continued a very serious Zen practice all of her life. She's now in her 70s. This one's called Against Certainty. There's something out in the dark that wants to correct us. Each time I think this, it answers that. Answers hard in the heart grammar strictness. If I say that, it too is taken away. Between certainty and the real, an ancient enmity. When the cat waits in the path hedge, no cell of her body is not waiting. This is how she is able so completely to disappear. I would like to enter the silence portion as she does, to live amid the great vanishing as a cat must live. One shadow fully at ease inside another. For me, the best line in the poem is, between certainty and the real, an ancient enmity. We tend to be very certain of our opinions and our beliefs. We have very strong feelings about this or that. She's asking us to not take ourselves so seriously, to have what her teacher, Suzuki Roshi, called beginner's mind. To give up this idea that we're experts. To become more fluid, more flowing, more selfless, like water, or like a cat. A cat waiting in the path hedge. No cell of her body is not waiting. When you're sitting, just sitting, just being there. This is how she is able so completely to disappear. I would like to enter the silence portion as she does. To live amid the great vanishing. As a cat must live, one shadow fully at ease inside another.